Welcome to the How Could You Podcast Halloween Special. I'm Ryan Tocci.
And I'm Lauren Tocci. It's Halloween. Everyone's entitled to one good scare.
That's a great way to start us off with a good Sheriff Brackett quote.
Yes.
You know, I got my Halloween 4 Return of Michael Myers socks on.
Of course you do.
I got my favorite Scream Queen PJ Souls t-shirt here, so I am totally ready to go.
And you are ready for the next 6 categories of questions. That's right, we've got 6 categories today because you all sent us in some phenomenal questions for this very special Halloween Q&A where we're going to talk about all things spooky season and fall and horror movies.
Yep, here, Halloween is not a day, it is a season.
It is a season indeed. And to get us started off, you know, certainly the Halloween season, it culminates with getting to go trick-or-treating. So we're going to start off with our first category today, which is trick-or-treat related questions. So first question coming to us from Phoenix Delvecchio. What's your favorite Halloween candy?
Oh my gosh. Reese's Peanut Butter Cup.
Ooh, interesting.
I mean, that's a great question to start us off with.
It really is.
Because, I mean, candy, Halloween, they go together. It's you know, synonymous with each other.
Yes.
So I'm going the Reese's Peanut Butter Cup because you get that single Reese's Peanut Butter Cup in your bag at the end of the night. You got a few of them. You got solid gold right there.
Oh, man, if you got a twin pack,
oh my
you
God.
won Halloween.
What, you go in the rich neighborhoods?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Mine is, I like a fun-size Skittles because I don't know what it is. I can never really commit to a full bag of Skittles, but a fun-size pack of Skittles, I'm all about that.
Hey, you know what? Miniature size, taste in the rainbow. Well, then I got a follow-up with that.
What's
so
that?
thank you, Phoenix, for that question.
Great question
was a great question to start us off with. But the follow-up to that would be least favorite Halloween candy.
Okay, this is totally easy. It's a Tootsie Roll. Because Tootsie Rolls are like a Halloween prank. Because they just get chucked at you during parades. And then there's those weird, like, flavored Tootsie Rolls, like orange and lime. And I think there's like
ones?
I don't remember a blue one. But I do remember, like, the different fruit-flavored ones and just thinking, like, that's just upsetting. And I get it. It's economy-size bags of candy, but at the same time, when that gets chucked at you, it just feels like, what was the point?
Are you fearful of the Tootsie Roll?
No, I'm not fearful of the Tootsie Roll.
It's a projectile candy?
You know, maybe that is, like, no, I just think Tootsie Rolls taste so weird.
So is it just all, like, you know, parade candy?
No, I'll do a Laffy Taffy.
Because with my bank, we did a Halloween parade. We threw full-size candy bars, which I thought were quite dangerous.
Oh, quite awesome. Who wouldn't want to bank with someone who's going to give you a full-size candy bar for free?
Should have been a 100-gram bar.
So I'll ask you.
See, now I think it's the wax, though. The wax.
Oh, do you not
wax
like
teeth? You know. That
I never thought of those as candy because in the name it's wax. I don't know if they were just decorative. Do you actually eat those?
You gnaw on them.
Oh, yeah, that's so gross. Oh, God, moving on. So, you know, obviously, like, a huge part of, like, trick-or-treat and the whole getting ready is thinking about, like, a costume you want to wear, which always I felt like was, you know, like, a very big decision. I still feel like is a very big decision at that point in the year. So is there a Halloween costume that you always hoped to do as a kid but never got to do?
Yes, I do. Mine was always a half man, half female type costume.
Oh, interesting.
So it came from when I was a kid. I had a Garbage Pail Kid card. The Garbage Pail Kid card, I don't remember what the name of it was, but the guy was, you know, half male, half female, and I always thought that would be an awesome costume, so I wanted my mom to sew, like, you know, this whole costume, like, almost like a tuxedo on one side, even maybe like a wedding dress on the other, something like that.
Oh, that'd be really hard to pull off.
I think the hair was always going to be my concern.
Because it would have to be a half wig,
yeah.
And then addition, but I'm even thinking just, like, the construction of, like, a full pant on one side and then a dress on the other. That would be really hard to make.
So it was a lot to ask of my mom, and it's probably the reason I never got that. But I think that was that was always something I always wanted to do, but never.
It's a really cool idea, though. I like that a lot.
Yeah. And what about you?
I always wanted to be some version of Robin Hood as a kid.
Oh.
I started, like, obsessed with Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, the Kevin Costner movie with the really great Bryan Adams song. And I really...
The movie that I try to make you watch on New Year's Eve every year.
You know, that's like a whole other episode of our very weird New Year's Eve traditions. But it's something that, like, I just loved that movie. And I always just thought Robin Hood and, like, archery was, like, so cool. And it's one of those things, I don't remember, like, actively pursuing that costume as a kid, but I always remember really liking that character and always wanting to be Robin Hood.
I would have saw you as more of a Will fan in that. Christian Slater.
Oh, I loved Will Scarlet, but I wanted to be Robin Hood.
Yeah, understandable. All right. Maybe we could still get that to work. That would be an awesome costume. So then moving on, for you, for Trick or Treat. All
yes.
Right, when you were a kid.
Okay.
I have to know, it's always a big debate. when was the night you guys did it? Were you a Friday night before Halloween, or were you a Halloween night person?
Well, okay, so obviously this is not, you don't get to choose this. It's dictated by where you live.
Of course.
So
I have two questions with this.
Okay.
What did you grow up with?
Okay.
And what do you now as an adult think it should be?
Okay. So I grew up with it being on Halloween. So where we lived in Texas, in Rockwell, Texas, and then in Nazareth, it was always on Halloween. So to me, trick or treat is on Halloween. That is like the end of the season. And I'll say this, I still would prefer trick-or-treating on Halloween night, no matter what night of the week it falls on, because I just think that's such a fun thing. You know that is the day that trick-or-treat always is. How about you?
Lame.
Oh, boo. When do you want to...
Friday night before Halloween.
Oh, come now, sir.
Oh, my God. All the anticipation, you get all that fun, and then you don't have to worry about going to school the next day. So Friday night before Halloween... You still can celebrate Halloween how you see fit, but trick or treat, you get that joyous night of celebration and mischief, and then you don't have to worry about getting up for like a reading test the next day.
First off, reading tests are total fun, as is going to school, so I don't know what your problem is. Then you get to go to school the next day, and you know you get to have little fun-sized candies.
Sugar hungover.
Yeah, and then fun-sized candies in your lunch bag.
But we both can agree here, though, right? The afternoon trick-or-treat's gotta go, right?
No, there's something not right about that. It's something unholy about trick-or-treating.
That random town that you heard that was just like,
yeah, like,
we have
like 3 to 5. And you're like, what's the point? Like, what are you doing with the rest of your night then?
Yeah, who cares about safety? Go
at night. Take a flashlight, know your route, have a buddy.
So you were a flashlight trick-or-treater?
Yes, flashlight trick-or-treater.
Did you used to have the one like with the pumpkin at the end of it? It made it orange or anything like that?
No, but I do respect anyone who did have that.
Yeah.
Or like the ones that would like project something like a face, like a ghost or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are always really cool. You have to feel like they probably don't work for very long, but they were really cool looking. So when did you stop trick-or-treating?
My last year was 6th grade.
Okay.
So I had moved from Bethlehem, Pennsylvania I was in Penargil, Pennsylvania at that time, and then we moved up to Palmerton, Pennsylvania. And then so 6th grade was the last year. And I don't think my mom even wanted me to do it that year. Like she was kind of like a hard line, you know. And I remember I wanted to do a Predator costume. There was a Predator costume. I thought that would be really cool. And I think I kind of knew that was probably going to be one of the last, if not the last year. And because the next year I'd be going to middle school, and that was the cutoff at that point. I ended up not getting the Predator costume. I had this really strange green mask and like just some clothes thrown together. It was kind of the perfect end costume because it just was like a hodgepodge. So I have to ask you, there's a little bit of an age gap between us, not a huge one. I know that there's some people right now making
definitely
jokes,
laughing. Yeah.
But so for you, because I know this has changed, when was the last time for you?
So mine was my freshman year of high school. So I went trick-or-treating. There was a group of friends. So I went to Bethlehem Catholic High School, and I had just like transferred in. So I had gone to public school prior to that. And my group of friends, we just decided we were going to trick-or-treat. We went trick-or-treating in Bethlehem, and we went to Charlie's Angels, but for some reason our version of Charlie's Angels meant like white denim, and I don't exactly remember why that was the case, but I feathered out my hair like Farrah Fawcett, and we went trick-or-treating. And I remember there was this guy dressed as Michael Myers at like a house where they had set up like a little like haunted thing, but he was super, super persistent and like would not leave me alone. And I'm an easy scare, but wouldn't leave me alone and kept like following us around. And so I tried to rip his mask off, and I ripped a tuft of hair out of the Michael Myers like hair of his mask. He left us alone the rest of the night, and then I think I went, yeah, this is it, we're done. I'm not trick-or-treating anymore.
So now do you think, I know that this is something that high school kids do still trick-or-treat, my understanding. I think you would know a little bit better than me. Do you think that's okay?
Yeah, totally. I think, honestly, like, as they say in Hocus Pocus, it's meant to be a night of frolic. And I don't think there really should be an age. It's not, my rules are this: wearing a costume.
Have to wear the costume.
And, having fun in the spirit of what it is.
An appropriate costume.
Yes.
Not an non-offensive costume.
Non-offensive costumes. And having fun.
Being respectful and having a good
course.
time.
Yeah. But I would say that a kid of any age that's how it should be.
Totally with
so
you.
no, I say keep that magic of Halloween going as long as
there's only
possible.
so long you get to go around and get free candy from houses.
Yes.
If I try to do that now, that's a whole
No, yeah, it's a whole different scenario.
So your trick-or-treat nights, were you a bucket, bag, or sack person?
Okay. So all respect to the bucket because that's the Halloween icon.
Iconic shot. Yeah, you
Yeah.
get that picture with that plastic bucket that gets about 8 pieces of candy.
Especially if it's like a McDonald's bucket.
Oh, those were awesome.
Yes.
Right? All right, so which was your favorite of the McDonald's buckets? Were you witch, ghost, or the jack-o'-lantern?
I really like the witch one.
Which was cool.
Yeah, the witch one was really cool. The ghost one was cool too because I think it was a glow in the dark thing because it's like white. No, I was like totally like I was a sack person. Like I wanted like a pillowcase full of candy. I wanted as much as yes. Okay, it sounds awkward saying it like that, but
no, yeah. So you were like legit like
like a pillowcase.
You did that.
Yes.
I thought that was only something done in TV and movies.
No, of course you took a pillowcase. It's like, it's the most, it's not going to rip. You have plenty of them lying about the house, and that can hold a ton of candy.
Pillowcase a bag. Like, we always got some type of free bag, and that was always kind of...
Oh, I kind of remember
But, like,
those.
if it filled, that was it. Like, there was no second, going back out.
See, that's weak sauce. You don't have to worry about that with a pillowcase. Pillowcase, you can fit a lot of candy.
So
a whole year's supply.
Trick or treat. Did you go around? I mean, obviously not when you were a freshman in high school, but was it like your older brother? Was it your parents? Who took you around?
Mixture of the two. Our parents took us. I went with my brother. My brother's a little bit older than me, so when he stopped trick or treating, then I went with friends around the neighborhood. So
Gotcha.
so it was kind of a mixture. I think at like different ages, you kind of have like different stages of your trick or treat. Your parents taking you, siblings, and then friends eventually.
Yeah, I grew up. So do you remember the first time you went trick or treating, like at all, or
not at all? No, I have no memory of that. I have very fond memories of trick or treating. I know how much I love trick or treating, and I can remember some of my costumes. But remembering my first trick or treat, I don't know why that's not. I remember my first visit to a pumpkin patch, but I don't remember my first trick or treat.
That's understandable. I mean, usually you're so young with it.
Yeah.
Like, because I remember going in Oklahoma. And I remember that was like the year, and I'd have to double check with, like, there was question on whether it was going to happen, because I may not be mistaken, but I think this was during the, like, razor blades and the candy type hysteria. I'm almost positive, and there was, like, questions on whether it was going to be, but we still went.
There are age jokes I want to make right now, but putting that aside for a second, so do you, like, have memory of the whole razor blade fear in the candy? Because, like, by the time I was, like, I would have been cognizant of that. It was, like, kind of an urban legend more vibe.
Yes, the answer to your question is yes. Now, because I was so young, so I would have been 3-4 years old at that time. I may not have everything exactly right, but I do remember that hysteria. I remember very vividly being in our driveway and some neighborhood kids, probably friends of my siblings, and that finding out, like, from them that, trick-or-treat was going to happen, but it was just, like, the whole big question on whether it was going to happen. So, yeah, I was part of that. And then I remember for years being trick-or-treating when we moved back to Pennsylvania with my best friend, over years, Monica. Like, we went trick-or-treating with our parents, and then years my siblings would take me. And I remember that was a big deal because the neighborhood kids did not want to go with any type of older person or adult. They left me behind, and I was still trick-or-treating, but that's okay, because it was cool. I liked going with my siblings. That was fun.
Well, to keep this nostalgia train a-running, so obviously a big part of this season is you and I love going to haunted attractions, like haunted houses, although I don't ever fare well because I'm a very easy scare in these environments. But so going to haunted houses, whether they're local or, put on by a theme park or anything of that variety, do you remember your first haunted house experience?
I do.
Ooh, what is it?
I actually have a really fun experience or memory of it. I was young. Again, ages could be a little off here, but I would say probably in that 6-7 range. So yeah, I was going to a haunted house at that,
of course
very
you were.
early age. It was at Ilex Mill in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. So if anybody knows Bethlehem and knows Ilex Mill knows that building has kind of gone through, like, it was one thing, then it was broken down and abandoned for years. But when I was young, it's now back to being, operated and used, but it was used for a haunted house. And I remember going with my brother Pat and my sister Jolene and being in line, and I thought I was a tough guy because there was like this window that Jason and Freddy Krueger came out of, and they were yelling at the crowd, and the crowd's yelling back at them, and then I start yelling back at them, and I remember my siblings getting a good kick out of this, and I was the big tough guy, right?
And you had like a bowl cut, so I'm just picturing tiny little Ryan with a bowl cut at like 6 or 7 years old, like yelling at some guy playing Jason.
But then we went into the house.
Oh gosh.
And I remember Freddy Krueger spots me and he gets right up to me and I am petrified. Petrified. And the funny part about it is I remember they were a Freddy Krueger glove, but the fingernails, like the things, glowed. So they were all glowing like red, green, blue. So ridiculous.
So this is like a 1990s rave version of Freddy Krueger.
But I was terrified. So all the tough guy that I was outside, nope, I was terrified through this whole... I haven't talked to my siblings about this, Pat or Jolene, but I would love to know because it was probably the lamest haunted house, but I was so scared. But I was hooked on haunted houses after that. So kind of volleying that back to you, I'm curious because I get the feeling you did not go to haunted houses as a kid. Do you know when the first time you went?
Yes, I do. I didn't go to haunted houses as a kid. We did a lot of Halloween stuff. Halloween was a very big deal in our house. Like, really went all out for it, with decorations and, like, preparing and, like, costumes and all that fun stuff. But no, so my first haunted house experience was with you, and it was at the Saylorsburg Hotel.
Oh, was it really?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it was the first haunted house you ever took me to. And it petrified me, like through and through. And I will say to this day, and we've been to tons of haunted attractions and experiences. You know, it becomes something that, like, if we're traveling at Halloween time and we're in a town and they have one, we go. I will still say firmly that Saylorsburg Hotel is the scariest haunted attraction I've ever been to.
So I know I'm jumping ahead a little bit. We have a question coming up, which is favorite haunted house.
Yes.
Is that then? I know you're saying it's the scariest. Is that also your favorite?
Yes.
Okay.
And because if you've not been to the Saylorsburg Hotel, so obviously there's the fact that it's thought to actually be haunted. And then additionally on top... As most of them claim. Yes, as most of them always claim to be, like, actually haunted. But it's the whole experience of going up there because it's, like, the windy roads and then, like, it feels like it's in this, like, secluded spot. And then, like, additionally on top of it, they just have always done such a great job with, one, changing it from year to year so you don't feel like you're getting the same experience. And they don't use any, like, IPs. Like, so Michael Myers doesn't come out at any point of it. What they did is just built a story around this hotel, and it honestly is so effective. And the other thing is, like, when you go through, like, most haunted attractions, you get kind of sent in with, like, a herd of people. This doesn't. It only sends you through with the people you came with, and every once in a while you bump up against another party, but for the most part you don't. So I've always found that space to feel the most effective, and there is something, and I know this is going to sound, like, demented towards the place, I feel like that blend between, like, reality and the play of it works really well in that space, almost the point of, like, you get trapped in there in the way and the labyrinth of the haunted house itself. You feel like you're never going to get out. And it's a longer haunted attraction. So hands down, I would still say of all of the ones we've been to, Saylorsburg Hotel remains my favorite.
I'm absolutely with you on that. We've been to so many, and I agree completely. It's the best. I happened to go a few more years before you and I started going. So yes. I had gone even in high school with our friend John, and it's reinvented itself over the years. So actually, you talking about IP, in the beginning, it did have some of that in there. There was Michael Myers, things like that, and it worked really well in that space.
I imagine.
But through the years, they've actually now created a second haunted house to it, so it's, you know, a dual type thing. But they just, like you said, that's what makes it great. The fact that it keeps reinventing itself, all the scares work throughout, and it just is solid, and it has that classic haunted house feel. Like, it's you go up this old, like, dark road, you pull in, like, it's just, yeah, it works. I'm with you.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite haunted house memory?
Well, before we jump to that, I do want to ask you.
What?
So, and I get the feeling I know the answer to this. Are you a haunted house or haunted hayride person?
Definitely haunted house. I love haunted hayrides. I think they're really fun. But the problem is like, you see the scare actors coming at you for a really long time, and sometimes I feel like those interactions feel a little awkward, because they're just kind of yelling at you. You're like, well, I'm not scared.
Do you remember the time we went to one? We were with our friends Holly and Joe, and this character was so far away. They started yelling for so far away. And you hate laughing because these people are trying.
No, and they were doing such a good job.
But this person, it was so far away. It was comical. We've now made the joke over the years that they stopped and took breaths.
Yeah, that they were like,
I'm
coming at you.
Yeah.
And then they kept, yeah.
But you asked me about favorite memory. Mine is, it's funny, my dad was a huge haunted house fan.
Oh, right on.
And one of my favorites was actually one of the worst haunted houses we went to. One of my favorite memories. He was so excited because Crystal Cave in Kutztown, Pennsylvania, was doing a haunted cave. And he thought this was going to be the coolest thing in the world. He let us bring some friends from the neighborhood. My siblings went. We were going to drive. It was like a 50-minute drive. Like, it just felt like a huge production. Yeah. And he just kept talking us up.
Feels like a lot of build-up.
This is going to be, and I just remember the excitement about it. The haunted house was a letdown. Aww. It didn't work. It was just too big. So and it's dangerous down there. So the scares were just
So the terror was coming from a very different place than haunted house.
So it didn't really work from that end. But it was one of my favorite memories of haunted house.
So mine is, if you've ever been in a haunted house with me, you'll know that I'm the worst person to be in a haunted house with because I'm an easy scare and I draw a lot of attention to the party in a negative way because I'm easily terrified. And I'm ruthless. So if I see a scary person, even if you're my best friend in the world, I will throw you into a dumpster because I just want to get away. I am truly someone who gets very easily terrified in these situations. And one of my favorite memories was actually at Sellersburg Hotel. We took our niece Mackenzie to the haunted house, and she was much younger at this point. She, even at that age, was far braver than I, but she asked to hold my hand when we went into the haunted house, and I realized I wanted to be like, oh, you think you need to hold my hand? Yeah, Mac, I need to hold your hand. And it was just one of those things. It was such a fun thing to get to share in, and I think because she was so young, I mean, she had to be 8 years old, and I was like, oh good, someone who seems as terrified as I am going through this. So it was actually very comforting not to be the most scared person going through.
Yeah, she was definitely much braver than both of us.
Oh yeah, completely. Yes. For sure. So, we love haunted attractions, but let's move this into maybe a little bit more grounded space and talk about our next category. So ghosts and actual haunted places. So this first question comes to us from a former student of mine by the name of Joe Thomas, who's amazing and brilliant and super creative. And he asked us 2 questions. He wanted to know, well, actually 3 questions. Do you believe in ghosts? And have you ever experienced anything particular paranormal? So I will say first, I know we both believe in ghosts, for sure.
Absolutely.
So, and I definitely know of a particular haunted happening that we both experienced, if you don't mind me sharing that.
Please do.
So one night in the place we live in now, I had woke up in the middle of the night, I think it was summertime, and I turned to the door of our bedroom and I saw the outline of what I would describe as it looked like a man. It looked like the shadow of a man standing in our doorway. And my defense was I literally pulled the covers over my head and went, nope, not dealing with that, and went back to sleep. And I know if you're thinking how could you do that? Very easily, because I was so terrified. I felt like my only defense was to literally at a childlike state, just go under the covers, make sure my feet were not hanging off the bed, and I'll be fine. So the next morning, I went out to the kitchen, and you were out there, and I was making my coffee, and I said to you, hey, did you, and before I could finish the questions, you said, see the shadow man standing in the door last night? Yeah. And it was this dead silence, no pun intended, and this realization of wow, we both saw something very, very creepy last night. And I'm sure those of you who are, not necessarily believers in the paranormal can probably explain away a lot of things, but it was definitely one of those very real moments of going, that is something creepy we both shared in. And, there's some strange happenings in this apartment, and I think you and I are very much believers of it's all friendly.
Music, voices, yeah.
Yeah, friendly things.
I think that I agree with you. Believe in the paranormal, believe in ghosts, but don't believe that they're scary or harmful.
No.
Doesn't mean I won't be petrified when one actually comes up and says hello, but you know.
Yeah.
But yes, I do not think that they're something to be, scared of. I don't think that they're back here. I think they're just the shadows of our, our loved ones there to, make sure we're okay.
Yeah.
Or kind of stuck, just hanging out.
Yeah.
But I think they're good.
So with that, do you have, so obviously, Hollywood has done a brilliant job at like creating ghost stories and committing them to film. Do you have a favorite movie, or I'll even throw this out, TV show that involves a ghost, whether it's in like a main capacity or they're the antagonist, or maybe it's something metaphorical? Do you have, and that's also another question coming to us from Joe Thomas.
I appreciate you saying the TV because I think you know where I'm going to go with this.
Yeah, I do.
Listen, there are two great movies. I would say The Shining and The Sixth Sense, two great ghost films.
Oh, for sure.
But right now, it's the Haunting series. Whether it's Haunting of Hill House or Haunting of Bly Manor, to me, those are just perfect, excellent pieces of art and ghost storytelling. I mean, they're scary, but they're telling you just a very unique and very poignant and very vivid story while they're giving you these haunts on top of it.
Well, they're deeply emotional.
Yeah.
I think that's what makes them work so well. Like, obviously, with Bly Manor, you have such like that, tradition of Gothic fiction coming into play here. It's based on Henry James's Turn of the Screw and a few of his other short stories as well. And I think there's just something about, I think Mike Flanagan as a director in general has just such the pulse on how to tell stories of apparitions and ghosts and haunted spaces in the most beautifully metaphorical ways, in which like he can really get at the heart of like familial drama and psychosis and kind of personal traumas, but and have the ghost be a part of it, but almost like a service to like these really beautiful character driven stories.
Well, I think great ghost story, and really any type of great type of storytelling in that way, is when that is not their background to your main story.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
And you and I could sit here and talk for an entire show about the Haunting series. We just had a few hour conversation about this, where right now everybody wants to rank them. Do I like Hill House better? Do you like Bly Manor? And you and I both agree they're both just excellent. They're both amazing. Hill House takes for me a little bit more because it hit on a different personal level for me. Bly Manor, you would pick a little bit more because it hit on a personal level for you. But at the end of the day, we're both like, they're both amazing. Watch either, watch both. Go ahead.
Well, and I won't lie, when I saw Joe's question, I was like, we could do a whole episode just about our favorite ghost stories committed to film. Because I would say another movie that I love as a ghost story is The Others, the Nicole Kidman film. Okay. That is another great... and same thing, and I think it's just maybe like kind of my desire to see like those kind of stately manors that are haunted, and like creepy kid ghost stories I think just always work so well. So with that, have we ever been to any haunted places? This was another question. Any haunted places that we've been to, which comes to us from Doug.
Yes, we were to the Sun Inn in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. We actually did a ghost hunt, which we were both very bored by.
Yes, there's actually a Ghost Hunters episode about the Sun Inn.
Yes, most of these answers are coming from Ghost Hunters, right?
Oh my gosh, I think most of the places
Eastern
have been
State Penitentiary. We've been to a few different ones over the years. But
I would say our creepiest, though, there's not a Ghost Hunters episode about, and it's in Danvers, Massachusetts. We went to where the stone foundation is of Reverend Samuel Parris's house. So if you know your history about the Salem witch trials, or if you read The Crucible when you were in high school, so that is where the first accusations occurred, were in that house, because that's where the afflicted girls, Abigail Williams and Betty Parris, Reverend Parris's daughter, were, crying out the first victims of the witchcraft hysteria. And we stood in the stone foundation of where that house used to be. And it felt creepy there, guys.
Right.
I'm not gonna, the fact that we didn't come out cursed is probably a miracle.
It was real unique. It was very... I'm happy to get to see that in a weird way. I mean, it's a tragedy, obviously, but it was very unique to see. And the situation, like you said, it was like walking in somebody's backyard and just seeing where this, yeah, it was very odd.
Yeah. Speaking of backyards, so your sister Erica asked a question, and I really want to know this story. She wants to know, do you remember the haunted house you lived in and the weird things that happened there? How is this the first time I'm hearing about this?
Yes, we lived in a carriage house. It was off a main road, but it was a half address. It was a carriage house set back off the road, adjacent to a cemetery, like legit, and just weird things happened over and over. I mean, your classic haunted house stuff. People walking upstairs that weren't there.
Oh no, I hate that.
Voices, shadows, the creepiest basement you'll ever see. And I know Erica has this great story with it that I happened to be with her. So our parents were out of town. Mm-hmm. As, high school kids do, they may have some friends over. Never, And so she picks me up. She had to pick me up. I don't remember where I was, and we're coming home, so she's telling me, you gotta be cool about this, man. They're gonna be over there. Don't tell mom and dad. Sure, no problem. We pull into the driveway, and all of her friends are outside, like, looking scared. And the lights are all in, and I guess what happened was they were in the house, and all of a sudden they started hearing footsteps, and lights were turning on, and they thought somebody was in the house. And went running out.
Dude, I have, legit chills right now. Because I'm picturing that, and it looks like something out of a horror movie. And then you guys would have to, sleep there that night after that happened. Oh, my gosh.
It was legit something that everybody in the family was like, yeah, it's off. It's a little weird, right? Bad
energy.
Bizarre. And I always got freaked out because my mom used to make a lot of jokes about it being a poltergeist, and I was the age of the poltergeist.
Oh, gosh.
And it actually parlays into my ghost experience, where I believe I saw a ghost, which was not at that house, at the next house we lived in. And I very vividly remember waking up and seeing what I believe to be a spirit, a ghost, in the corner in a rocking chair. We didn't have a rocking chair, but the person sitting there rocking. And I just remember being awake and seeing them. And it was very, So.
I take it back. Ghosts are scary. We're sleeping with the lights on tonight. I'm going to surround myself with stuffed animals. Oh, gosh.
Then we'll move forward.
Let's move on to some movie questions.
I mean, we're a film podcast.
We are a film podcast.
So this type of season, you can't avoid... Scary movies are such an integral part of it. So
yes, and we got some great questions. We actually, Doug Ward sent us in 10 questions, and we're going to try and go through all of those.
An entire show alone on that. And we'll get to those. But I have a question from Kristen Malloy.
Yes.
And she asked a good question, and I'd asked if we could use this on the show, and which was, who is the best, scariest Halloween creature or monster? And then there's a follow-up on that. Do you prefer horror films that are gore, campy, paranormal, or more psychological?
Okay, so...
She also said, curious to the two of you, since it's clearly a favorite genre.
Okay, so no, these are great questions, and, there's so many great monsters, but I like a sensitive monster. I like a monster that you can kind of root for or kind of understand the psychology of why. So to me, my favorite monster is Frankenstein's monster.
Excellent.
Or obviously when we're talking about the Universal Monster series, you're going to refer to the monster with the bolts in the neck as Frankenstein. So full disclosure, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein is probably one of my all-time favorite books, if you didn't know that. And the way in which that story, discusses humanity and, learning, about how humans treat each other and, debates over technological advances, everything in that book still feels very relevant and prescient today. And that's why I love that book so much. And why I love that monster so much is because I think when you watch that original film, came out, was it 1931?
30s, right?
1931. Yeah. I just feel like when you're watching it, even though it does not have the richness of Mary Shelley's backstory.
I was going to say, they're a lot different, right?
Completely different. They're completely different. And it does not have the richness of that kind of inner dialogue that the creature has. And obviously kind of the character arc is nowhere near the same because you don't get to really see that same expression. But to me, there's something so sensitive about the fact that this is a being that was kind of brought into the world and did not want to be here, and reacts the way in which society reacts to him in these kind of monstrous ways. So I've always loved, there's just something really lovable about Frankenstein. You just want to give him a hug.
He's such a good character.
Don't give him flowers, but give him a hug.
Because it's this character that is a monster. He does just horrible things, but none of it's intentional. It's not he's such a sympathetic character. So it's really, I'm with you. It's an amazing character because that's what I would have asked you, a Universal, if that would have, of the Universal monsters. So yours is just all across the board the same.
Yes, and then I would say the secondary question that Kristen asked was, I am a huge fan of psychological horror. I like psychological horror that kind of like nests in your mind and then you're thinking about it later on. I also really love stories where like it plays a lot with like reality and unreality and like that's kind of I think the subsection of horror that I attach the most to now. And it's not to say that I don't love, I'm not a huge like gore person. It doesn't bother me, but it's not like the thing I look for in horror films. So I would say psychological horror is where kind of I like to live. How about you?
So monsters, I don't know if I would have described him as a monster, but I think Michael Myers.
Oh, great. Yeah, great
that
answer.
is my favorite horror film franchise. He's just blank and terrifying and unrelenting and stalking, and he comes with the creepiest score you could find. So he's coming around. As for favorite type, I'm gonna go psychological as well. Right now, I'm very big into like The Witch and It Follows, and these films that are what people would a lot of times now call boring, but I would call a slow burn. They just seep into you. And that to me is as scary as anything. I'm more of I don't need you to show it to me. Like, let me
suggest everything.
It. Yes.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Although I do have my favorite subgenre right now, which is the found footage haunted house.
Y'all, the amount of found footage haunted house films I've had to watch in the past 2 months is astounding, and to varying degrees of success and failures.
They don't have to all be found footage. I mean, but you give me there's a real haunted, crazy haunted house. Yeah, but that's definitely subgenre.
Weird subgenre. All right, can I give you some rapid fire film questions for this list? So, what is your most overrated horror film of all time?
I would go Amityville Horror.
Interesting.
It didn't hit with me at all.
I'd go Rosemary's Baby, which I know is probably going to bring a lot of shock and ire. And interestingly enough, the first time I watched both of those movies was at your dad's house in the basement, and we watched both of those back to back. We watched Rosemary's Baby.
That's the first time I saw both of those too. So maybe that says something more about us than it does, or that evening.
We might need to revisit those films.
A lot of people that would the Rosemary's Baby one, I think, would be
upset. And I have reasons that I can maybe explicate at another time in longer form. But yeah, Rosemary's Baby is definitely one that does not hit for me. What's your favorite non-scary Halloween movie?
Fun Size.
Oh, that's mine too.
I don't think that is yours.
What do you think is mine?
Hocus Pocus.
Hocus Pocus is scary. That opening sequence is terrible. Or when her nail goes through the window, like sill, like the screen when she's coming to get Danny.
Uh-huh. It's a great Halloween movie, but I don't know about that. Fun Size, though, anybody that doesn't know about Fun Size, that's a movie you and I watch every year. We love. It was from Nickelodeon, so it was totally mismarketed.
Yeah.
It is, because it's not a kid's movie at all. It's not like necessarily, it's more of that teen 20-some-year-old, I would say.
As Tom Haver would say, teens, tweens, and in-betweens.
Yeah. But it's a really fun, good Halloween movie about, kind of that transition in life and dealing with loss.
It's a very cool, and it is very, very funny. I highly, highly recommend that. What is your favorite Halloween TV episode?
Freaks and Geeks.
Oh, good choice.
Yes. That is such a good episode. You should watch every episode of Freaks and Geeks, but if you don't watch any other episode, watch that Halloween episode.
I would favor that might be the best episode of Freaks and Geeks.
Yeah, definitely.
And we quote that episode a lot.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
What are you eating? Laundry soap?
Look at me. Which was Fun Dip.
Fun Dip, yeah, she's eating Fun Dip. What is your best Halloween special?
Well, I want to know what was your favorite?
Oh, yeah. Gosh, because your answer is so good. I would say mine is, it's a Parks and Recreation episode. I think it's the second season. It's called Greg Pakitis. And the A storyline is about this, kid, Greg Pakitis, who always pulls, a really big Halloween prank, and, Leslie's, trying to, prove that he's the one doing it. But the B storyline is Ann Perkins is trying to throw a Halloween party, and it's not going well, and, nobody's into it. And I actually think it's just, such a funny and relatable, when you're trying to throw a party and, the atmosphere isn't hitting, and it's just such a funny Halloween episode. So definitely check that episode out if you've never seen it before. What's your favorite Halloween special then?
Mine would be the Halloween That Almost Wasn't with Judd Hirsch back in the 80s. That's it. You don't need to go any further.
That's the one where the witch isn't going to fly across the moon.
Yes. So Halloween has to happen with the witch flying across the moon. And, like, everybody does Halloween. All the monsters are real. Everybody knows it. But that's not going to... Because she doesn't want to be scary anymore. But, yeah.
Mine is Mary Kate and Ashley Olsen's Double Toil and Trouble. It's got 2 Cloris Leachmans in it. Cause
you watched it this morning.
I did watch it this morning because it has the evil Cloris Leachman and then the good Cloris Leachman. And I will
love here for Charlie Brown's Halloween special.
No. Yeah, we definitely went deeper cuts for that. Horror movie location that we visited. Have we visited any horror movie locations?
We have. We went to the Myers house.
Yes, we did.
And not in Haddonfield, Illinois.
No,
but
it's in South Pasadena, California.
Yeah, that was that was definitely the highlight of that trip to me. But that's a big highlight of a place that we've ever visited.
Well, because you can visit in such close proximity: the hardware store, the Myers house, the Strode house, and the hedge.
I was lucky enough to have a great picture of me coming out of the hedge, just like Myers.
Yes, you did. And when you go to the Strode house, it's really awesome. So the family that lives there has like super embraced this. And if you remember, there's that classic shot of Laurie Strode holding a pumpkin, like waiting for Annie Brackett to pick her up. And when you go to the Strode house, they actually have plastic pumpkins on their porch and instructions of how to take that iconic shot and to borrow their pumpkins to make your Halloween dreams come true. It's just such like a wonderful way of embracing the place that you live in and giving like a lot of love to the fans and letting them kind of let that place be special to them as well.
I love that picture of you sitting on the stoop holding the pumpkin.
Oh, thanks.
It's such a cool,
What do you think is the best horror movie since 2010?
I mentioned it before. It Follows and The Witch, or The Vitch, were my 2 favorites. I just think those are just amazing films and awesome. And they just get under my skin, but they're just so well told.
Mine is Us, and I hope we do a whole episode about Us because I could talk about that movie for about a good 5 hours.
Us? That was your favorite horror movie of all time?
According to a Morning Call article, yes it is. It was definitely my favorite movie since 2010.
Lauren was misquoted in the newspaper for doing an article and said that was her favorite horror movie of all time.
And don't get me wrong, that'd be very high up there, but it's not my favorite of all time. So I was just like, well, it's not exactly what I said, but I do love Us. Everything Jordan Peele does is amazing and brilliant. Yeah. Joe Vasquez wants to know, what's our favorite guilty pleasure horror movie?
Oh, that's a good one. Because you think a lot of the campy movies like Choppin' Mall, Friday the 13th Part 7 would be in there for me. Mine, those would be 2 of mine. I'm going to go with The Happening.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, you really have a love for that movie that does not make sense.
Everybody hates The Happening.
Everyone does hate that.
I love The Happening.
It does have some very scary scenes in it.
It does. And I know it's flawed, and I know Mark Wahlberg is terrible in it.
Truly.
I will sit down and watch that movie any day. I love it.
Can I tell you, I don't think it works, but I love that you love it. Because we do love M. Night Shyamalan so much, so I'm glad.
What about you?
Mine is Urban Legends.
Oh.
The big Joshua Jackson faves, of course, like helps to contribute to this. But it was like, it was all those urban legend stories you heard, and then they come to life in the movie, and I thought that worked.
Again, Joshua Jackson's blonde hair in that movie.
Ew. No, he looked like a villain. That's never a good idea to bleach out your hair like that.
Urban Legend was part of the Scream-a-thons, right?
Yes, it was.
It came after that change in horror. You talked about Urban Legend. I have to ask this question, and it's a backup to the haunted houses. The haunted house that you have to go up and you get $1 back for every floor, and that there are trap doors that you fall down. Did you ever get to go to it?
No, I didn't, because it doesn't exist. But this is a huge...
But I know a guy who went.
Your cousin claimed that he knew someone who went.
He argued with us.
He did. I will never... And we were laughing hysterically because we're like, no, this doesn't exist. And the rumor, if you remember, for the longest time was that it was Eastern State Penitentiary.
Yes.
So much so. It used to be on the frequently asked questions from Eastern State Penitentiary. No, we are not the haunted house that gives you $1 back for every level. But if you find it, let us know.
Yes. And I think the part that amazes me with our cousin that did it was it wasn't that long ago that he said it. I'm like, this is the internet now. Like, this should not still be an urban legend. This should be a quick Google search. But no, everybody says that there is a place.
Yep.
Put us in their comments and tell us if you have heard about, had this infamous urban legend for you as well. But I think we all heard that comment.
Oh, yeah, and I think it's, like, super regional to, like, if you're from Eastern Pennsylvania, I think you've definitely heard the story at some point. Jesse wants to know, what is the first... Jesse Calavoto wants to know, what is the first horror movie we ever watched together?
So, full disclosure, we had to talk about this before the show because neither of us could remember, actually.
No,
we could remember the first couple of movies we saw together. We could remember a lot of movies, but for whatever reason, we could not remember the first horror movie. We narrowed it down to what we believe is one of the two.
Well, so I was convinced it was the Texas Chainsaw Massacre because the first time I ever saw that movie was with you in your apartment in Kutztown, and we hadn't been dating very long, and I remember watching that movie with you there. But when we were like fact-checking for this, I actually think so when we worked at Carmike, you had to preview, quote-unquote, preview the reel the night before a movie came out to make sure it worked, and we stayed before we were dating for a late-night showing of Secret Window.
Oh, gosh.
The Stephen King adaptation starring Johnny Depp, which neither of us particularly like.
No.
And I'm pretty sure that is the first horror movie that we saw together.
We'll, I don't know. The first movie we saw together, we don't really necessarily love to brag about either, so...
Oh, God, because it was Bad Santa,
Bad
was it?
Santa,
Yeah, it was Bad Santa. Okay,
so
all right. So we've gotten a lot better. All right, so Doug had a bunch of questions for us.
All
So
right.
let's handle this rapid fire to like kind of close out our film section of the Halloween podcast. So he wants to know, what's your favorite ghost story?
A Christmas Carol.
Oh, that's such a good answer.
Period. One of my all-time favorite story and my all-time favorite ghost story.
Mine is the voice from Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. Ellen, I'm on the first step. Chills me to the bone.
Yeah.
It's short. It's perfect. Do you think Carmike was haunted?
No.
I do.
Carmike was the movie theater we worked at.
I may or may not have played the Ouija board in the projection booth of Carmike to see if it was haunted, and I won't reveal.
Did you play it by yourself?
No, I played it with two friends.
Okay.
But still, I don't know, a haunted theater kind of works so nicely.
That place wasn't that old.
Let me have this. Do you think that campy horror movie deserves more respect than what they get?
Oh, yeah. They hold a place, and they do, because, I mean, there's still art. It just may not hit for everybody, but everybody is still going out there, doing their best, and, and people love them. It's fun.
Yes, for sure. I completely agree with you there. Do you think that every decade there is a quote-unquote Mount Rushmore of horror monsters?
Yeah, I mean, I guess you would say yes to that.
Yeah, I think some decades probably more successful than others for sure, because we're talking about the Scream-a-sons, so we're talking about the films that came after Scream and kind of that, I mean,
I think building your Mount Rushmore is really just however you want to. But yeah, of course, definitely.
Do you think, and I think this is a good question, I think I know how we would both answer this, do you think that horror movies that are considered quote-unquote tortured porn considered real horror, i.e. like your Hostel, your Human Centipede, and stuff like Last House on the Left?
Listen, the answer to that is I don't want them, I hate them.
It's definitely not our style of horror.
Style of horror. I try to not put it down so much only because some people can say my fandom of horror and not like it and think it's not real art. So I try to play that, but no, I'm not a fan.
I agree. Do you think horror will ever have a surge like it did in the 70s and 80s?
I think we're in it. I mean, you have directors like Lee Winnell, James Wan, Ari Aster, Robert Eggers, Mike Flanagan, and then you have all these, universes of The Conjuring and Insidious and all these. We're in it still. I mean, even if it's not your cup of tea, I think we are still in a horror,
Well, I think even if
surge.
you didn't love it, like Midsommar is a great, I think explication of this because it's something that really hit for people and that had people talking. Yeah. So I think that's kind of a signal to the horror genre having a nice resurgence right now. I completely agree with you. I think we're in a really special moment. I think we're only going to see that probably 10 years from now, how special this time particularly was. What's a movie that's not a horror movie that freaks you out?
Dear Zachary, the documentary.
Okay, that's a depressing answer. We're going to go on to the next. Totally legitimate answer. And then he said this, and finally, we can only agree on one between the two of us. What is the best horror movie of all time?
Say it together.
3, 2, 1. Halloween. Thank you, Doug Ward, for those amazing questions. They were a lot of fun to answer, and definitely, I think, we could have done a whole episode just on his questions alone. They were really well written. Moving into our autumnalanious or fall fun miscellaneous questions, coming to us from John Andrews. What is the best fall sport, cross country or soccer?
You gotta be kidding me. You make one decision in your junior year of high school and it follows you forever.
Just say it. The correct answer is cross country.
I say, follow your passion, follow your heart, whichever way that leads.
But obviously cross country.
Suck up.
So coming to us from Jess Reardon. Ryan, whatever happened to Corn Guy?
See, this is what happens when you have, friends following you. Corn Guy, real quick about that.
This is such a weird story.
So when I was in high school, we used to build floats during homecoming.
Obviously.
Somebody thought that was a good idea. Let a bunch of high school kids figure out how to make a tractor trailer float to drive around your school.
Clearly.
Just give them free reign with all of the materials. Well, we did it one night, and we had to protect our float, and some dude was there with a piece of wood and nails that came up that my friend Paul and I did not know who he was, as we're trying to protect this float, and walked into the corn and said, "I've got your back."
I really feel like we could do a whole podcast series called This Palmerton Life, because everything you tell me about...
This is a completely true story for the record.
None of it makes sense to me as actually
just
real.
Walked into the corn and stood out there all night because he was afraid somebody was going to sabotage our float from the other side of the corn.
And for real, you guys didn't know who he was?
He was somebody's brother, but I don't know. And for all I know, Jess is right. He's still out there. Protecting all of us.
Protecting
all of
us,
our floats.
And all of our fall fun. All of our pumpkin spice. Question coming to us from Trivia Master of the Lehigh Valley, Steve Boss. He wants to know, was October 2020 a smart time for him to lease a Hyundai for 3 years?
Always a good time to get a Hyundai.
Yep, totally normal question to be asking for us. Thanks for that, Steve.
Is it a pumpkin spice Hyundai?
I really
definitely.
hope. Then it definitely is. But I told him we should get naming rights, and I think we should get to call his car Carpenter in honor of the season.
I'm all for that.
So, Steve, your car's name? Carpenter.
So maybe pumpkin spice Hyundais aren't a thing, but it makes me ask you a question.
What's
I
that?
know you are a lover of all things pumpkin
heck
spice.
yeah.
What is your favorite pumpkin spice item?
The Starbucks pumpkin spice latte. There is no other answer to this question. That is my favorite. My budget for pumpkin spice lattes this season is disgusting, and I don't care. I love all that foamy, frothy, spicy goodness. I love them.
Basic.
I don't care. I know I am. I am who I am. I like chunky sweaters and big fall boots and my pumpkin spice lattes. Most overrated Halloween tradition.
I'm going to go with bobbing for apples. Have you ever known anybody that ever actually bobbed for apples?
So I've actually have bobbed for apples.
You've got That's got to be a Texas thing.
It is a Texas. I'm pretty sure that happened in Texas. But I'm going to tell you, I find it rank and disgusting.
I'm pretty sure 2020 has stopped any possibility of...
So you know what? 2020 has killed bobbing for apples, and I think that's something we all could be okay with. So this is a question you wrote. What is the most scared you've ever been that was a non-serious?
Yeah, so something that you're not in danger, but scared you to your bones. Like, I know mine. What is yours?
I don't know if I know an example of that.
I know yours.
What is it?
Do you remember an eyeball sticking?
Oh! Yeah, okay, so again, when we worked at the movie theater, there was a standee for an animated movie called Monsters vs. Aliens, and there was a big eyeball on the standee, and you took it home, and one morning, I went to go to the bathroom, and the eyeball was in the toilet bowl, and I had no idea who had done this, and I screamed bloody murder. The whole apartment complex had to have heard me.
That was the last time I played a practical joke on you.
Yeah, because I think you learned your lesson. That is not a great idea. What is your least favorite Halloween costume of all time?
Mine would be my Robin costume, and I know you're gonna... Second year we were together, we finally did our very first couples costume. You went as Batgirl, and I went as Robin. And those know me, and those that don't know me, I am a little on the heavier side. And the best part about this costume was all spandex. All spandex. But my favorite about that whole thing was my dad, who just kept saying I looked like Mr. Incredible. At the beginning of The Incredibles trying Not that he was trying to shame me, but I think he was just trying to give me the heads up of maybe rethink this going forward.
I'm sorry, I've been incapacitated because I'm just picturing it, and I remember thinking that we were so cute.
And I was all out there for anybody.
You committed to your Robin costume. Do you remember mine was like made out of pleather, and then it rained that night, and you had to literally cut my armbands off because they shrunk to my skin?
All right, so, you know.
But
We've done better since then. You looked great.
Thank you. Do you know what costume I didn't look great in? When you made me be Lex Luthor with a bald cap. I looked so stupid.
Those costumes ruled.
My bald cap flapped on my neck. It flapped on my neck. I had a suit on, and we did Smallville version of Lex Luthor, so I had a purple dress shirt. I looked so terrible.
But you got to wear those purple shoes.
Oh my God. So I had... oh my God. I'm so...
The show has gone off the rails.
Let me explain. I bought Ryan.
All right. For those in the audience, so my wife is a great gift giver. She does a fantastic job. But for some reason, one year, she decided to get me these purple, look like snakeskin shoes. Dress shoes.
I found these at the attic in Kutztown, and I was like, what a find.
Like a thrift store.
These I was like, these are so unique, and they looked like something like Timothy Oliphant wore in The Girl Next Door, so that's why I got them for you, and I thought, these are awesome, and I bought them, with absolutely no irony. And you had to act like you liked them.
Yeah, I did. For the record, they were used once for a Lex Luthor costume.
Oh my gosh, people are going to flinch now when they open up Christmas presents from me when they hear this.
But if anybody wants me to bring those back, just let me know. I'll see if I can pull them off. You said about least favorite costume. So I got a kind of a question there. We are obviously into costumes every year.
Yeah.
Do you have a costume that you wish you could do? Not necessarily that you're going to do one year, but maybe there's a reason you can't do it or whatever, but there's a costume that you really wish you could do.
Yes, and I think a lot of this comes down to because costumes that you can't buy become really challenging, and there's one that I've wanted us to do, and we've talked about it, of doing Kanga from the reboot of Mystery Science Theater 3000.
Oh, yeah.
And I love her coat, but I don't know how to make it. And I think that's the problem is I have a lot of ideas for things. The other one, and it's because, and this is something I wanted us to do for the longest time, is to do a 1920s Hollywood movie actor and actress, but in grayscale makeup.
That'd be cool.
And I've always wanted to do that, but I don't know how to do the makeup well enough.
You know, Kanga's outfit, that's a purple jacket. You know what would go nicely with that?
Some purple snakeskin shoes. All right, moving into our final category of the day. So talking about memories. So this question came to us from Jolene Tossi. Favorite Halloween tradition?
I love this question. I think it was an awesome question and good one to kind of start to finish us out with, because holidays are so nostalgic. They're just these beautiful times they give you the memories of the past while giving you the excitement of, the future, and it's just this fun time of your life. And so traditions play such an important part in those. And I'm one that, traditions aren't gonna, it doesn't have to be something that we've done for 30 years. There are just periods of your time and traditions change, but you get them over a course of time. So to me, my favorite tradition is Night of the Living Dead. Which I hate to bring it back to film. So it's twofold here. I love when you and I are getting costumes together on Halloween night, and we're getting dressed, we order a pizza in, and we put on Rocky Horror Picture Show. So that's one of my favorites. And then it's Night of the Living Dead, because that one reminds me of my parents so much. They introduced me to Night of the Living Dead, and that was a Halloween movie to them. And so you and I have kept that tradition up, and we try to watch that almost every Halloween. Some years, depending on the time, we get it around it. This year, we happen to be doing a movie marathon with the Colonial Theater down in Phoenixville, so they played it as part of that. So we watched it a little earlier this year, but it's still, as we talked about, Halloween's not a day, it's a season. So as long as it's watched in that Halloween season, just the lights out, just that black and white George Romero film of that car pulling up to the cemetery, I am sucked in, and Halloween is happening, and I love it.
Oh, that's great.
So that is my favorite tradition. Same to you. I mean, I know you are all about the holidays, the traditions, and everything that comes with it.
There are so many, and like you said, like traditions like change and grow over time, and I love the ones that you provided because you're right, they're very simple, and I don't really know how they started. I know it's going to sound like greedy because like it's obviously involves gift giving. We give each other a Halloween present every year, and I really love doing that. One, because Halloween wrapping paper doesn't exist, so we both have to get like weirdly creative with that, and it's just like a nice way to like kind of cap off because we spend so much of this time like celebrating and enjoying all these like fall activities, you know, many of which we've talked about today. And to me, it's just like another like fun way to kind of cap off. And we always give each other Halloween presents on the 31st when the Great Pumpkin arrives, and that's just something that I really enjoy that we do.
Yeah, and you and I've done that since the first time we've been together, so that's been one that we've been carrying for quite some time. With traditions, decorations are always a big deal. Do you have a favorite Halloween decoration that you've had through the years?
So it's interesting. I think our favorite
past or present.
I think our favorite Halloween decoration that we have now is probably the same. But I used to love. So my parents always would get big hay bales and corn stalks and big pumpkins to put out front. So it had to change every year.
Yeah.
But I always really loved that because I felt like it really set like the fall mood, and it just always looked so beautiful in our front yard. What about for you?
Yeah, you know, and those hay bales and everything, they always looked awesome at your house. So
Yeah.
I was lucky enough to get to see them. For me, it's this ceramic jack-o'-lantern pumpkin that we have now.
Oh, yeah.
That my sister had. It was my parents, and she actually fixed it up and gave it to us. You and I can't do jack-o'-lanterns because of where we live, and this is just a great light-up jack-o'-lantern. It's old school, and it's just... it makes the season.
Yeah, because jack-o'-lanterns don't like survive in our apartment for whatever reason. So this
and
gives
we don't
us,
have a yard to put them in.
No,
So
this gives us like a beautiful
jack-o'-lantern. And we get to have it up the entire season, which is great. So closing us out.
Final question.
Yeah.
Ryan Tocci, what's your favorite Halloween memory?
My favorite Halloween memory is, I have two really quick. One as a kid, and that was, you used to go home during midday, during school, get changed, come back, you did the Halloween parade type of thing, right? And our teacher used to always try to figure out whether they could guess who you were or not. I always wanted to win that. I never could. So one year I went as a witch, like the classic female witch in like 4th grade, and I went and did this, and I won the contest. They could not figure out who I was.
That's so fun.
So I was really excited about that. The other one, and not to get too sappy, too emotional or anything like that, but the other one was we used to throw Halloween parties up at my dad's house for years, and we did them all the time. And then the year after he passed away, we couldn't do the party at his house anymore. So my sister Jolene was nice. She let us throw the party there as a joint party. She invited family and friends. We invited family and friends. And not everybody's into Halloween, but for that night, everybody showed up.
Truly.
Everybody was over the top in their costumes.
Yes, they were great
Everybody
costumes.
just had a great night. It was only a couple months after my dad had passed. It meant so much to me, so much to you. I just remember your parents came in. They had these great Three Stooge costumes.
Yeah, it was my parents and my brother. It was awesome.
We were watching Creature from the Black Lagoon on the TV. Mm-hmm. All our friends were there, and it wasn't a close drive for them. They had all driven really far. It was just a perfect night of family and friends in a very difficult time, but for that night, we had so much fun. It was the perfect Halloween memory for me.
Oh, that's great.
And then, final for you, what was your favorite Halloween memory?
So I know I always make fun of you and say that, like, I ask you for one thing and you always give me 5 things, and I'm definitely going to do that here. So I have 2. The first is my dad was really obsessive about trick-or-treat bags. So he had like a whole process. He would get these like paper bags, and then he would have like a Halloween eraser, a Halloween pencil, Smarties, Skittles, Kit Kats, and then I forget, there was always like another candy. And he would make an assembly line. And it was like very particular how everything had to go in the bag so it would fit just right, so it would all go in. Because what my dad did is instead of just handing out like a piece of candy, he would hand out like a whole treat bag to every single kid. And then, the coup de grace of this was the ceiling sticker, because you'd get like special Halloween ceiling stickers and you'd have to like fold it a certain way and put the ceiling sticker on the back. And what I loved about that is because like, look, trick or treat is such a quick thing. You go up, you grab candy, but like the fact that my dad like wanted that to be something special, that he put like so much time and love, and then he would set up this very particular assembly line is something that like
Your
I just
dad sounded like the place to go.
Oh, it
you
was.
Got a whole bat? That's awesome.
Can I tell you, I would get really excited if we wouldn't give all of them out, because I always really liked the bags. So then I would just get to have the candy. And there was always like really good candy. Like, so it was just like another way in which like we just celebrated the season kind of big. Like that it had to be this like very special process.
That's a dope move by him. That's awesome. I know when you talk about that, you get you just light up. So I like that.
Because I always had Smarties, and Smarties are like low key also another one. Actually, that's probably actually my favorite Halloween candy. I love Smarties.
No change backs. Skittles it is.
No, I get to have both. My other memory is actually from one of the Halloween parties that we threw. So we had thrown, this is actually the Robin and Batgirl year. So we're throwing a Halloween party. It was raining that night. Your dad was nice enough to let us throw it at his house, but your dad was in Maryland that weekend. And so, the party is like, raging on, and it's about like halfway through the evening. And I was in the living room talking to some friends, and your dad's, the one side of his house was these beautiful like cathedral high ceilings, and it was just windows. And I looked out into the yard because I heard someone say, hey, something's in the yard. And I looked over to the side and, not really thinking anything of it. We're just like, you're not thinking of anything like really serious. I'm assuming it's like a deer.
Well, right. I mean, you're just dark in the woods.
Yeah, because that's the thing is your dad's house was like set back. It was in the woods. So I'm just thinking it's going to be like an animal. And I look out and I see this old man. And it was like that kind of like initial panic, but then everyone's like kind of jovial about like, oh, that's kind of weird. And we're trying to figure out like, because the neighbors weren't necessarily close. This was kind of weird that this would be happening. And then the problem is he started getting closer to the house and then like walking back and forth. And that's when my head went, oh no, I have watched too many horror movies. I am not about to be the one. So I ran to your bedroom and like locked myself in there, which by the way there was a TV in there playing a loop of the video from The Ring. And there was all these like creepy lights. You had that awful like Exorcist poster in your bedroom. Like, so I was like freaked out and I was terrified. And I was like, this is not okay. Like there's someone walking outside. And then he got on the porch because I had at some point come back out and he was standing on the porch and there was like a crowd of people at the front door and like no one was letting this person in. And we didn't know what to do. And I legitimately didn't know what to do. And you came over to me and you had this smirk on your face. And I'm just looking at you and I couldn't process the fact that you knew what was going on. I just knew you seemed very calm about the situation. And then you let the person in.
No, I didn't.
Who let
Oh,
them
no,
in?
I did. I had to stop them. Yeah, that's right.
Because no one would let this person in.
What happened was it was a big party. Yeah. It had been going on for a couple hours. And then I didn't know my dad was going to do it, but I had been at another party where he showed up and did this and just walked around the party, never said a word to anybody. So once everybody started screaming and getting really worried about this person, I knew it. So I sneaked back into the background and just watched all the chaos go on.
And your girlfriend being terrified.
I wanted to see how it played out, but you are correct. What happened was at one point he tried to get in, somebody pushed him out. Yep. And relocked the door. Yep. That's when I had to intervene and then let him in.
Yeah, and then he just slowly, and I mean, honestly, it was like a total boss move. He just slowly peeled up the mask, and I see it's your dad, and I just like,
total
I was
Scooby-Doo
like,
moment.
It was total Scooby-Doo moment. I was like hyperventilating because I was like laughing and kind of still crying because I was scared.
And like it's hard to explain. This mask was legit.
It was terrifying.
It looked real,
Truly
and
terrifying.
you just looked like a real old person. And yeah, in that darkness, it was.
And I can still picture it in my head. I mean, it looked like something out of a horror. But you're like, this is how it starts because we're all gonna scatter, and there's only going to be a few of us left in the house.
You were the host of the party, throwing people out of the way.
Peace. Right? I'm out.
Like poor Holly in that haunted house when you threw her into the garbage can to get out.
Because I have watched many Final Girls, and I know what you got to do when you're in a horror movie.
It was George Costanza.
Really? Yeah. But it was such like a great thing to have happen like at a Halloween party, and it was like misty and rainy out, and it was like so perfect. So I was like Yes, it was one of my all-time favorite Halloween memories.
That was a cool memory. I like that one. I'm glad you shared that one. That was a lot of fun.
Well, we just want to take this time to thank everyone for sending in your questions. It was really nice to get that response and to be able, because it was things like I didn't think about to ask, and that made it a lot of fun getting to hear from all of you. We will be back the first Tuesday in November with our regular scheduled programming, filling some really desperate gaps that we have in our film knowledge. So until next time, please follow us on Instagram at How Could You Podcast, on Twitter at How Could You Pod. You can always send any suggestions to email howcouldyoupodcast@gmail.com.
Until next time, happy Halloween, remember to vote, and enjoy the Odyssey.